Off-season changes continue for the Minnesota Twins, who announced Friday that GM Thad Levine will be leaving the organization. Will Derek Falvey fill the position from within, hire an outside voice, pretend it didn't happen? Let's find out next by getting Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis in the world. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. I'm co-host Dave Brown, a professional ball writer since 1998, a BBWA member since 2012, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter since this year. Please follow me on Twitter at @AnswerDaveBrown if you like. Across from me in cyberspace is Brandon Warren, a Twins watcher for 30 years, who not long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally. He asks that you elevate the discourse with him on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. Here's what's coming up on this podcast. A lot of news. First off, Thad Levine is leaving. Levine was Derek Falvey's number one lieutenant in the Twins front office since late 2016, but he is leaving the organization to pursue other opportunities. He has been rumored in recent years as a finalist for jobs in other organizations such as Philadelphia Phillies. That job went to Dave Dombrowski. And it's possible that he's got something lined up, but we'll see. Either way, he's leaving. He's gone. Another thing that we kind of knew was coming eventually was the divorce of the Twins and Diamond Sports, according to activities in bankruptcy court. It's really happening now, with Diamond's lawyers saying they intend to divorce all teams that they're involved with except for the Atlanta Braves. Lucky them. It's time for the Twins to settle their local TV broadcasts and streaming issues. Finally, the MLB playoffs are going on, and most of you might know, or maybe you're pretending that you don't know, and that's okay. But know this, after the first round, there are still 2 AL Central teams standing. That could have been you, Twins. We'll get into this, these stories and other details about these topics in a moment. But first, Brandon, please tell us about our sponsor for this episode.
Well, good afternoon, sports fans. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. And Dave, there's 3 AL Central teams still standing, technically.
Are there?
Well, the Guardians, Tigers, and Royals, yeah.
Did I say 2?
Yeah. So 75% of the AL field comes from the humble abode, the humble AL Central.
Should we start over?
No, we're already vested. It's just time. We got to roll. No, but two teams from the AL Central moved on, and the Guardians are right where they want to be, which is awaiting any one of them. By the way, we didn't have this in the pre-show notes, and I don't mean to spring this on you, but Terry Francona is going to manage again too.
He is. He had enough of Cleveland, but he still is okay with Cincinnati. So Sam Weish, if you're up there somewhere, you can identify with that. It's that's a guy that would have been a better choice to manage the White Sox than some other people in recent years, but he, of course, is not going to want to work for Jerry Reinsdorf. He did that once, kind of indirectly, as Michael Jordan's manager 30 years ago. So, hey, good for him, and I hope he's ready for another team that's not going to spend a lot of money. So he's got his work cut out for him. The Reds have some talent, but the Castellinis spend like the Dolans over there, down there. So we'll see if
it's an Ohio thing. You wouldn't understand.
I would not. So yeah, so 3 teams left in the AL Central. I guess in the AL playoffs from the AL Central. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the news of the day is Derek Falvey's number one lieutenant, Thad Levine, leaving. Thad is technically the GM. Falvey's, it seemed like he's the guy where the buck stopped. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like when they were hired, when Falvey was hired, and then he hired Levine in 2016, they were sort of twinsies, if you will. They were kind of a yin and yang, and it was a dynamic duo, if you will. In recent years, it seemed like Falvey became more of the leader, and maybe that's always was the case. maybe that's just natural for how things would go. It was always kind of a mystery, and maybe one where the team doesn't really want you to have a lot of clarity on the situation, just because you think if you're another team out there, if you're a rival, you got to deal with both guys. I don't know, but in recent years, Falvey's become more defined as the guy in charge, and of course, we've seen other stories in recent years. I mentioned the Philadelphia Phillies as a possibility. Levine was a finalist reportedly for that job that went to Dave Dombrowski, and there have been other positions, and maybe he's got one lined up. But so now we're in a situation where there's no GM, and at a time of year when there's it isn't so much players on waivers and that kind of thing, but there's still lots of stuff going on as far as roster construction for the following season. So the Twins have some guys in the organization. Sean Johnson comes to mind just as one who might make a good GM, a promotion from a scouting position or player development or something like that. Do you see them plucking one of their own for this, or might it make sense if there's going to be some turnover, and there could be in the roster, just some churning to make things a little different? Bringing in someone from the outside, might that have some value?
Yeah, I mean, it's the time of the off season where moves are churning internally. You're doing organizational meetings, like the scene in Moneyball where Billy Bean and Jonah Hill's character are in there and they're going over what they're going to do in the off season. Now, obviously, it's not exactly like that, but organizational meetings, you got to start figuring out who you're going to outright off the 40, who you're going to add to the 40. All that's taking place right now. With that said, that doesn't mean it couldn't be an external move, but I fully expect it to be somewhat internal. I had not thought of Sean John as one of those guys, but I had thought of either I always screw up the first name. Is it Daniel Adler? Because I know David Adler and Daniel Adler. One is a forward-facing baseball analyst for MLB.com. I think that's David. I think Daniel is the one that's with the Twins. And I could see him doing it. I could see Jeremy Zoll, who was and is the scouting director. It feels like an internal thing to me. With Thad, I don't know necessarily. Like when they were hired, you kind of made mention of that. There was a lot of talk about synergy and togetherness and all that kind of stuff. And when they joined together with the Twins, they didn't fire and clear house like a lot of people would do. They valued internal stability. Now, in time, there's been turnover in that regard. Rob Antony, a trusted Terry Ryan ally, is no longer in the organization. Been a full year since that happened, I think. But I think you could obviously make some sense out of someone wanting to come from the outside or them wanting someone to come from the outside. But it just feels to me like this is going to be a rank and file, bring someone up, backfill sort of thing, more so than maybe hitting coach or something to that effect. I think they're more likely to go out and get someone who affects the on-field product a little bit more on a day-to-day basis from outside than they are in the front office, because I think that, with the path they've charted so far for this off season, that's going to be the easiest way to do it. And I think too, they may have known for a while this was coming. A lot of people kind of sounded the alarms of, these guys don't have contracts this offseason. Well, Levine leaving is more or less just his contract expired. I wouldn't say he got fired. And I don't know if you can say it's mutual or if one side versus the other preferred this. But there's a lot of people out there speculating, which is foolish. Yapper's going to yap. But it seems to me like it's amenable. And it probably was both sides deciding it was for the best. But I don't know if one or the other side first was like, okay, let's try something different here. I think it's going to be, though, filled internally. That's my gut instinct.
The Twins have had a lot of good things happen to them with Falvey and Levine in charge. They had a team a couple years ago, win 100 games. The farm system gets lots and lots of respect and has been kind of building that way. The team last year won the division and also broke a long organizational drought as far as winning a playoff series. So, there's lots of things that are going to make Thad Levine's resume pop to somebody else. And like I said, I don't know if he's got something ready or something on the verge. I don't think that he's going to have a hard time finding a place to go. but I also think that it's a big loss or change. I mean, we'll see who they get, but they've had other guys in position for a few years. It would seem to me, we've talked about in other off seasons the possibility of Levine going somewhere else.
Mhm.
So, like you said, it's something that the team has kind of seen coming. There's not going to be a huge organizational philosophical change here because Falvey is still in charge. The Polads are still the owners. So I think a lot of those things are going to stay the same. But I think it's okay that Levine is leaving, and I think one of the other guys already in the organization is probably going to be fine stepping into that role, and then backfilling. Then you can maybe backfill with somebody from outside the organization who will give you a different viewpoint on some of the places where you might have redundancies or an abundance, or just give you a different view of what your all your rosters look like from the outside.
Well, and so we're heading into, I believe, year 9 under Falvey and Levine. And something interesting to me is that a lot of the players that they had no connection or ties to are either out of the organization or on their way out. Max Kepler hitting free agency almost certainly. Jorge Polanco traded last offseason. Alex Kirilloff, maybe a non-tender candidate. I don't know if I would non-tender him, but certainly it's been discussed outside of the organization. So yeah, it's interesting now that with all those guys out of the picture and now Levine out of the picture, this is like Falvey's ship that he's commanding. And if we believe he was at the beginning, or at least recently after Falvey or Levine kind of was less prominent, this is going to be like Falvey basically orchestrating what he is trying to do with his guys that he brought in some form or fashion. I mean, the Terry Ryan era is completely book closed on it outside of Kirilloff, who I think they drafted like a month before he was fired. So it was just interesting to me to note that while we were talking here, like, oh yeah, the TR influence on this staff is more or less gone.
Was it 2016 where Terry Ryan left the second time? Is that?
Yeah. So they went into 2017 with, I think it was the Royce Lewis year where they drafted him. And Terry left after 16 when they lost 100 and it was 59 and 103, I want to say. Just an absolute total system failure. And then a lot of people are dubbing this year total system failure 2, which, I mean, it was a bad thing. But I don't know if I'd say total system failure more as we pooped the bed in the second half. I don't think those are synonymous.
Well, on that note, let's take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this and other things like the AL Central still being viable in the playoffs and other issues as well as they relate to the Twins.
Today's episode of Locked On Twins is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. We're starting to figure out that ALDS stuff, and I tell you what, on the NL side, it's going to be an absolute barn burner with rivalry matchups. I'm excited to see those games. Very, very eager. AL Central dominating the AL side, but that does mean that Booking.com can help you check out those cities that are specifically your rivals. It's the perfect time of year for that. So get the Booking.com app today. They are the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. They've got the hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, everything you could imagine under the sun on Booking.com. And so you just might find your perfect stay no matter where you're going this postseason. Or maybe you just want to try out some of the baseball rivals of yours, cuisine. There's something special to eat in a lot of these cities. In Cleveland, beats me. I know Cincinnati's got chili, and maybe that's what got Terry Francona over there, but I highly doubt it. He's more of an ice cream guy. Anyway, Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you, and it can help you book a stay that's close to your home stadium or the visitor stadium if you're going to go check out your rivals, check out your team playing their rivals, which, again, in October, a lot of that going on right now. Mets, Phillies going to be crazy. Padres, Dodgers, crazy. I mean, this is going to be a fun stretch run here, but the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city. That's right, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, booking.yeah. Make sure you check out that booking.com app.
Yeah, Padres Angels is going to be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Dodgers.
What did I say?
Angels.
Wow.
Angels.
How could anybody screw that up?
You watched it. Maybe you watched Angels in the outfield the other day or something.
Well, I mean, there's a large former Angel on the Dodgers, but it's weird to imagine to get confused about having the Angels in the National League playoffs or any playoffs for that matter. So
the
I'm
AL
glad
Rockies.
glad you caught me on that. Well, anyway, those series are going to be nuts, and I think it's going to be neat to see the Royals and the Yankees. I think most of the really good teams though are in the National League.
Yeah.
I think the 3 best teams are in the NL that are left.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then the Mets.
And the Mets are, better
we're gonna get
a couple
Mets
of teams
Royals. Like what was it?
That'd be funny.
2015.
Yeah, that was when the Royals won the World Series. That would be. I can't see it, but that would be funny, and people would kind of hate it. So I'd be for that, just from that standpoint.
I love when people hate baseball for like actual legitimate reasons rather than just, oh, my baseball team lost. Like, oh, I'm bitter that MLB didn't get the ratings they wanted. Who cares? I want to watch good baseball. I don't care if they line their pockets because it was a good TV matchup. I want to see teams that I don't get to see every single Sunday night on ESPN.
You and I are like that. I think a lot of fans, though, are more into their local team. Mm-hmm. They're more regional, so we're built a little different in that. And also we're baseball writers, so we kind of dabble in other teams anyway, naturally speaking. So or more in the course of events. But well, speaking of ratings, Diamond Broadcasting, or whatever you call it, is they've been making news in bankruptcy court lately. The other day, I think it was Wednesday or early Thursday when
it's never good to make news in bankruptcy court, is it?
I mean, it would be nice to just get it on, to get on with it and not to get it on in court. That would be very strange, but to get it over with. Yeah. Because it's just kind of been hanging there, and either teams are using it as an excuse, or there's a legitimate hang up. Well, we can't really proceed until we know for sure what's going to happen. Well, in court the other day, Diamond Broadcasting said that they do not intend to broadcast any more games of any more teams except for the Braves. So that should let the Twins off the hook. Now, the Twins have known, we've known kind of that Diamond has been kind of flagging for years and on the verge of this and kind of on their way out, and they're desperately trying to stay relevant. I mean, I can relate to that part, so I can't rag on them too much. But they're just going to have the Braves now. We know that they're not going to have the Twins or the other teams that they're still sort of attached to. So this gives the Twins clarity on, all right, should we get our own local streaming deal, or should we go and kind of nudge Rob Manfred to coalesce the other teams that want to get together on a group thing, go back to Amazon and get some kind of deal set. Yeah. So we have local streaming in the Twin Cities and these other places. I can't help but think we're going to have finally some, it might not be all great news because it might not be a lot of money compared to what they're used to. I get the feeling that's going to be the case. Aaron Gleeman noted that in court, they also said, or it also was revealed, that the Twins made $54 million. I think it was Aaron, or maybe it was Phil Miller writing in the Star Tribune that the Twins,
the Minnesota Star Tribune, not the Minneapolis.
I love Phil. It's the big state. It's not a city.
Yeah.
Okay. Or cities. 54 million. I think they made. That must have been as of 2023. So I don't know if it's going to be that much money per team anymore in this Rob Manfred streaming dream, if you will, which sounds icky now when I put it in those terms. But not, at least we are a step toward understanding what we have in front of us, and the Twins can either now they have to use it as an excuse or whatever, but it's much less unknown. They got to poop or get off the pot with local streaming.
It's like the second most damaging thing someone admitted in a sports related courtroom this last week, right after Brett Favre admitting he has Parkinson's. Like, it's not been a great week for sports court drama. I would love to see clarity sooner rather than later. And I think that's a universal thing that everybody wants to see. Everybody from Rob Manfred, when you want to be, the devil on one shoulder versus the angel on the other shoulder, who wants to know how much money they're going to spend and that sort of thing. To me, I mean, I feel like maybe the best possible route could be over local TV, whether it's Fox 9 or something like that, just at least in the short term to have some stability to get the fans back. Because I think if you have a grand plan, it's going to be hard to implement efficiently right away until you get back a lot of the fan base that you lost in the last, year when people couldn't watch the games. So if they don't get to implement like their high pie in the sky, best case scenario, I don't think local TV for a year or two would be the worst possible scenario. But I do not have like the business acumen to say, okay, and then if that's the case, let's ramp that payroll back up to 2023 levels, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you think makes the most sense? And do you think I'm on something, or somewhere in between?
Possibly to all of the above. I'll say this: the getting back on local TV as in something that's free, other than having to sit through commercials. Well, that sounds like a bridge to nowhere anymore. The way things have been going, that's what the White Sox are doing. That is going to be part of. They are creating a Chicago sports network. I think that's what it's called. And they got themselves and the Blackhawks and the Bulls on it locally, and maybe the Sting too. That's a joke. That's a Chicago sports joke from 1984. But maybe the Fire. I don't know. The local soccer team, men team. But at least those larger three teams. And part of the deal is it's going to be available over the antenna. So people are going to have to whip out their antennas, their digital antennas, and get to their roofs or a nice window or something and hook up an antenna again, just like the old days. So if Jerry Reinsdorf wants to do it, maybe there's a future in it. I hate to say it. I mean, we don't want to give him credit for anything, but it is interesting that that is part of, it's going to be available digitally too on cable, supposedly. But having it at least for Twins fans who can get a TV signal in the Twin Cities area, I kind of like that idea. I think that would usurp the Rob Manfred's digital streaming idea a little bit. I don't know if the Twins could be part of that. I don't know if that's going to work. Yeah. I can see where Major League Baseball is going with something like that because there's strength in numbers and it's more appealing to a place like Amazon because it gives them more programming potential. Even if, like I said before, most people who do that kind of thing, it's not exactly like football, where you might get a Chiefs fan to watch, another team's games. It's much more regional with baseball. So I don't know, but I think that would be great for fans if they could get the Twins free on TV. I think it hasn't been an underrated thing or not talked about thing. It's been a big deal the past few years. All the goings on with Bally Sports and losing subscribers, and I'm sure that's kept attendance. That's bodies down in the seats too, not just people not eyeballs on TV, but it's been not free, but it's been relatively cheap advertising for the team just to remind people that they're still there.
Well, if you can't watch us on TV, how engaged are you to go to a game? You know what I mean? Like they kind of feed each other, really.
For sure. So. But it's got to be settled now. I kind of think that they need, it would have been if they were going to do like a piecemeal 1 year at a time. I kind of feel like this year would have been the year to do that. Yeah. But instead, They chose to stick with Bally Sports and all its problems. That turned out to be a mistake. And to do something just for a year again, I don't know. I think the sooner the Twins settle this problem, the sooner they win back the fans, like you said, that they've been losing.
Yeah, and I think it would be dangerous to chase a short-term gain at the expense of a long-term plan. So I think me writing that down and then you saying it was kind of funny, like synergy, like Thad Levine used to say. Well, let's take our last break. Then when we come back, we'll run a little bit long here and talk about why we should be a little more bitter, or well, I don't know if there's any more bitterness in in terms of Twins fans having any left to get to. But AL Central tearing up the October scene. How much should we be sad that it's not the Twins? Well, NFL fans, you can start the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You get a hunch in the middle of the game that something's going to happen. You can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's right. That's FanDuel and the FanDuel app. Download the app, and you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You don't even have to win. Just place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. I saw someone put their guaranteed bonus on the Detroit Tigers to win the World Series at the beginning of the year. And they actually had, I think, $1,000 that they put into it. And they can cash out now at $35,000, or they can ride it out for $600,000. And so they're getting lots of advice. But
cash that. Cash it. Cash
I think
now.
cash it too. This person said they wanted to keep it and build their own farm or something, which is cool too. But I'm cashing, man. 35 large. That's huge. But if you want to just get started, you can get started on FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you got to do is bet that first $5. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And of course, we love Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with 5 million plus active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you picking more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watching your winnings roll in. If you like to play the risk, they have risky picks. If you like to play it a little bit close, they got the exact opposite. And if you want to play the middle, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, jump in on the app and check it out. You've got all different options for your risk tolerance. I really can't describe it much better than that. You just got to go in and you've got all kinds of options. You've got NFL, MLB playoffs. It's a good time, even if your team's not playing, to get in on the action. You can win up to 100 times your money with as few as 4 correct picks if you play those multipliers right. So turn $10 into 1,000. Not bad if you can get the work, right? Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action, and it's in most states: California, Texas, Georgia, Minnesota. I don't know about Missouri. We haven't checked on Missouri yet, Dave. We'll have to do that. But it's not. Well, that is sad. I won't bring it up again. It's the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. If they leave in the first half, Prize Picks keeps your picks live. And they put their members, not mumbers, I don't know what mumbers would be, first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So when your picks hit, you can get your money in as quickly as 15 minutes. And you can also do the flex play, which means you can cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if your picks don't hit. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
Well, I've never been one of those fans, and I've been a baseball writer for a long time. So my perspective is different now than most of the people listening to the show or watching it. I'm not just a diehard Twins fan or whatever. I'm kind of a fan of all teams in a way. They said that maybe you'd become a fan of nobody when you became a writer. I became a fan of every team.
Good stories, good baseball. You want to see both those things.
Absolutely.
Like P. Alonso's homer, awesome baseball. Awesome.
Yeah.
Could have been his last swing as a Met. Right?
Really neat stuff. But it's tough for if you like Bob Uecker, you want him to call another World Series, it's tough to take that. And Brewers fans are in a funny position because they're obviously a competitive team, but they also seem like, well, there's only so much that
they're the Minnesota
Nacios-
Wild. They're the Minnesota Wild of the MLB, of MLB, not the MLB. Scratch me saying that from the record. I would never say the MLB.
and scratch me saying there's only 2 teams from the AL Central. The editor will come in and fix that.
Well, at the end of what is it? Pardon the interruption. They have corrections. If Wilbon and Kornheiser can have corrections at the end of their show, so can we.
I'm not sure if that logic holds, but okay.
Okay.
So we've got these teams from the AL Central, and I think I get the feeling that like most Twins fans would rather pull their eyelashes out one by one than root for any of these teams, except for especially someone like Cleveland. Maybe they don't have feelings about Detroit and Kansas City, whatever. And probably, I think a lot of people hate the White Sox because they're from the big bad city, but they're not a threat right now either. I look at it like, I used to think I never had a team like a college football team, but I would always root for the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl against the Pac-10. I didn't go to Illinois. I went to DePaul. We haven't had a football team since like 1938. But I would always root for the Midwest or whatever. I can understand you not giving a crap about that. That's fine. But I will say what's going on does grind my gears a little bit that, this could have been the Twins in the playoffs. I mean, they could have beat the Astros, maybe not the September Twins, but like the June Twins could have beaten the Astros and the Orioles. I think that they could have beat them too, even though they had gone to the Orioles. I remember this early in the season and gotten stomped pretty good. So maybe not. Maybe I'm being a hypocrite there. But this could have been the Twins. And it just kind of reminds me of how close generally they were to being a World Series contender. And some people just didn't. I'm not saying that they would have won the World Series had they spent a little more money on another pitcher or another bat or whatever. But, I mean, we're never going to know, are we?
They were an Eric Fetty away from being in the postseason. If you want to be frank, I mean, honestly, they were an Eric Fetty away, a Michael Lorenzen away from at least being in that conversation, and that wouldn't have cost them an appreciable amount of money that would have made even a hill of beans difference in the coffers of the Pohlad family. And
I would have liked to have seen them try.
Yeah,
there's some value in that, in giving it a shot and not giving up and not just saying, well, this is what we're going with. I know we've had these conversations before, and there's lots of things to get upset about as far as how the team played in September, and they kind of made their own bed too. It's a big bed, and they all made it. But I know the first thing was that they didn't get enough reinforcements from the top. So
and I see these offenses, and it's guys with every player has a 715 OPS. Jake Bowers is hitting big playoff home runs. Sal Frelick, who had, I think that was his first home run since, didn't they say May 15th or something like that?
Right. Well, look at how the Tigers are getting through these games. Tarek Skubal, and then the entire bullpen.
Andy Ibanez. Michael K didn't even know his name.
Who is this?
Ibanez. That call was fine until the Ibanez thing.
It was a good call until the end.
I saw someone get upset about it. No, the not knowing if it was fair or foul thing that you mentioned. Hey, just look at the umpire. Calling it at the edge of your seat where you're watching it as it goes can fly if you know the player's name. That's just where it went off the rails for me. And that's where, again, I keep coming back to let hometown guys call these games, or at least have a 3-man booth, and one of them's a hometown guy.
Well, we got Joe Davis calling the Dodgers series. The Padres fans don't like that.
Well, I like Joe Davis, but yeah, I would understand the Padres not liking that. And then the Padres are doing the thing where if you don't have a zip code of a specific zip code, you can't buy tickets. So, I mean, it's a lot of gamesmanship. And you know what? I respect it. It's October, and you pull out all the stops. But when you're the Twins, all you have is stops because you've stopped playing baseball now for about a week.
If you're a ticket office, what good are you if you're not also trying to win the big game for your team?
Mm-hmm.
So
all hands on deck.
somewhere. So yeah, but getting back to my original point about what Twins fans should be feeling, yeah, it isn't so much rooting for if you want to root for the Twins or the Royals or the Tigers because they're a good story, or there's some ex-Twin on there somewhere, or because it's from the same division, that's fine. And if you don't, I understand that too. There's my worst rivals or whatever, I wouldn't want to root for them sometimes. I get it. But don't let your own team off the hook for not being there when they could be there and they could be doing this. That's my only point.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I mean, the Green Bay Packers could be facing Satan's buttholes, and on FanDuel, I'd be like, I'm taking a push. I'm not picking because I still could never root for the Packers.
Before we knew more about Brett Favre, this was before Jen Sturger, before Mississippi. The Bears were in a bad position in the 90s when Brett Favre was first, whatever. I thought it was really neat at first that the Packers were getting good again, because this was like what it was before I was born in the 60s. This is nice having the Packers, whatever. Be careful what you wish for, because then the Bears went into a deep, dark place actually, they might still be there to some degree. But I actually kind of dug it. And I ended up disliking the Vikings more because they were like the team that was sort of on the Bears level more so than the Packers. The Packers were, the heck with that. That's too far. That's way above my pay grade.
The Vikings are somebody else
to dislike.
The Vikings are the Brewers, maybe. That's what it is. You can't get above that hump. You could be aggressively mediocre and even maybe just good, but once the playoffs come, it's curtains.
Speaking of curtains, speaking of humps, that does it for this episode of Locked On Twins. For yours truly and Brandon Warren, this is Dave Brown. Did I just say for myself, this is Dave Brown in a way?
Yeah. It was a little bit of like you were throwing your voice, but that's cool.
I'm turning into Michael Kay. I'm not even sure who I am at this point, much less Andy Ibanez. But anyway, for all of us, which is just two of us, we're going to see you
tomorrow
night. Tomorrow night. We can go now.
Listen to my Topsies.